Celebrity Review. On Monday, 4 p.m., Richard Hoffman from the SCU. On Wednesday, 4 p.m., Erica Lukes in the Skinwalker Ranch Review. On Friday, 1 p.m., special surprise guest. Tuesday, on the Singularity Lab, 4 p.m., Jeremy McGowan, Drones versus UFOs. Thursday, 4 p.m., we'll see you next week. No show. On Friday, 5 p.m., Paradigm Shifts with Cristina Gomez. Come aboard, let's get weird on the Unidentified Celebrity Review.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in. The Unidentified Celebrity Review will start just in a minute. I'd rather be squidding, and this is my favorite 2 hours of the day. A lot of people, they still don't know what to think about the recent UFO revelations. As a result, many don't think of it at all. I don't know what to think of it either, but like all of you, I think about it a lot. And that's what I really appreciate about these shows is all of you, this wonderful community of people. We got Dave Bradshaw, Jason Fry, Jedi Camper. It's a wonderful community of people, and you're all engaged and thinking and sharing your thoughts about the phenomena. Other communities, the scientific community, for example, isn't as open-minded. Over the weekend, I've been thinking about the classic tale of the boy who cried wolf. I think we've been taking away the wrong message here. Should we really be blaming the kid for giving off false warnings? Maybe he saw a dog that looked like a wolf. Maybe he did see a wolf all those times, but when the whole village started running over, it scared the pack away. Instead of shaming this kid for false alarms and blaming the eventual disaster on him, the village should investigate and alter their alerting mechanism as needed. Unfortunately, this fear of crying wolf is pervasive in society and extends to the scientific search for extraterrestrials. They're all afraid of crying alien or even seriously considering the evidence that doesn't hold up to existing scientific norms. Things like Penrose's conformal cyclic cosmology, allowing signals from previous eons, messages encoded in quasi-crystals that are embedded in meteorites, odd radio circles in the sky, and potential messages with gravity waves from aliens. These are hardly taken seriously, and you can only find out about them on my channel, Rather Be Squidding. Check the Alien Signals playlist. I joke, I'm certainly not the only one taking these things seriously, but I don't want to paint the whole scientific community with this same brush. For example, our guest today represents one of the shining corners of scientific community, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. We have Executive Board Member Rich Hoffman here today. He'll share some insight into how his organization investigates the scientifically taboo. So, keep those questions coming for him. I'll be recording them, and if we don't get them answered right at that moment, I'll bring them up at the end and, as time allows. We got 71 of you here. That's really, really great. Thank you. Thanks, Artemis, for coming out. Case for Infinity. Authorel Aura. Really appreciate it. I think it's 2 past the hour. I think it's getting to be that time. If you're joining us live, you probably already have subscribed and rung that bell, but they wanted to double check just to make sure. And, if you have the means, consider clicking on Louise's Linktree and finding that Patreon link. That would really go a long way in ensuring that this show is here for this and many, many more miraculous Mondays to come. But now let's keep that live chat going. Your hosts of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, Louise Jimenez and Michael Mataluni.
Oh, thank you very much, Rather, for that wonderful, warm, informative welcome. We always appreciate it. How was your weekend?
I had a great weekend. A little bit cloudy here, but ready for a great week of UFOlogy with all you.
I love how rather he spent his weekend like thinking about the boy who cried wolf and the analogy with the UFOs. Like, I love the fact that that's what you did this weekend. I really respect and appreciate that.
Hard to turn it off.
Yeah, indeed it is. Indeed it is. All right, Rather, we'll see you in a little bit. Good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is Michael Mataluni. Before we get started, we gotta pay some bills, and those are, please check out the Linktrees, like Rather said. Check out the Patreons. We're gonna figure out a way to thank every single one of these Patreons. Check it out; it's coming soon. But we've gotten some really great donations on the Patreon. I don't want to shout out anybody individually because you know how I feel about extra access. But thank you to all the Patreons out there that have donated. Some people have literally started a legitimate bill for themselves. Go check out the legitimate bill tier in the Unidentified Celebrity Review Patreon. It's a lot of fun. So with that said, also want to remind you guys, we've got some great guests this week. On Wednesday, we're doing our Skinwalker review with Cristina Gomez, Jazz Shaw, and UFO Jane. We might have Stephen Greenstreet stop by. We're still talking to him, figuring that out. And then on Friday, who do we have on Friday, Michael?
This Friday we have John Greenwald.
John Greenwald. He just emailed us, so we're gonna have John Greenwald on Friday. So definitely be here for that. Also, Friday at 4:00 we've got Cristina, or 5:00. Cristina Gomez is gonna be shifting the paradigm. So check out her show at 5:00 as well. All right, Mikey.
I'm excited.
What are you drinking today? Well, are you're a little blurry? Is your camera okay?
That's what I keep hearing. It looks great on my end, but perhaps my internet. I've been having some Wi-Fi problems today, so that may be it. Worst case scenario, I might have to back out and come back in. We'll see.
Okay, worst case scenario. Okay, so I'm sorry, you were saying.
Well, I'm saying I'm freaking excited because we've got Richard Hoffman here today. Yeah. And one of the things that I've been kind of annoyingly rampaging about on Twitter lately is how often we completely dismiss potential science because we call it fringe. And so one of the things that I'm passionate about is taking fringe topics, putting them in front of the scientific, rigorous process. And so I love the fact that Richard's here today, and I love the fact that this is exactly what they're doing with the UFO topic. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, no, they had a big SCU conference over the weekend. I was dropping in and out of it because I was also working at the same time, and it was awesome. It was really, really cool. So I can't wait to see sort of what the results of that were, how excited people got, what were his highlights, things like that. So what I'll do, Michael, is let me, I'm going to let you back out, dude, just because I want your camera to be nice. So back out, come back in. Yeah. I'm going to introduce Mr. Hoffman while you do that. Thing. And then let's get this thing started.
What happens?
All right. So, Rich Hoffman has a BA in organizational communications from Wright State University. He's an information technology consultant and strategist. He's worked as a defense contractor for over 20 years, working primarily on Army Materiel Command HQ with a variety of companies. Currently, Mr. Hoffman works as an enterprise architect at Redstone Arsenal and the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. He has over 54 years of experience in investigating and researching the UFO subject. Mr. Hoffman has also serves as a director of investigations, STAR team manager, and director at strategic projects, and as well as the state director at MUFON, and worked with numerous organizations, and is now what would be your official title there at the SCU, Mr. Hoffman?
Well, I'm an executive board officer.
Executive board officer. So let's, Michael, your camera looks way better. Welcome back.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it looks really good now.
It's amazing what happens when you just back out and come back in. Usually things work right up. Introduce Mr. Hoffman. It's perfect timing because I just finished that. So let's start, Richard, because I know we have, and do you prefer Rich or Richard?
I like Rich.
Rich,
I
okay.
go by Rich, yeah.
Okay, all right. I just
Thanks.
feel, when I talk to like someone who's almost a professor, I almost feel like I want to be as respectful as possible. Okay, so Rich, how was the weekend? I was hopping in and out of the conference. I was listening to some really great conversations. What did you look all giddy? You look like it was a good time. So tell me about it. You look relaxed. There's no bow tie today.
Well,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
I was just going to comment that I felt underdressed, but at least I just spent the whole weekend in a bow tie.
There you go.
I'm looking to relax now afterwards. So,
Yeah. No, don't be sorry. You've got our permission to relax. You had a long weekend. I mean, normally Mondays are safe for bow ties, but hey, today's your weekend, so relax and enjoy. We're happy you're here.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you at least got to bop in. And by the way, you can see him at any time for the next 3 months. You can anytime you want to go back in, you can see all the presentations. So make it work for you.
That's definitely something I'm definitely going to do. Is it because I like to catch up? Well, I have to. I just don't have options. My schedule is so crazy. Like catching up on these long form conversations, I love them, but it's tough. So I'm glad that you guys have the opportunity within that software that you guys set up to go back and listen to those. That's something I wanted to bring up. So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it's an amazing piece of software. In fact, I got nothing but kudos on that whole thing. I think a lot of people expected it was going to be something like a Zoom meeting, and it's way different than that. It's
better.
It's got all the features that you would hope to have, like a question and answer thing next to the presenter. It's got polls that you can have and conduct. It also has lots of collaboration areas.
It was cool. It was very cool.
Yeah, I could have a virtual meetup with you, and we could have, even though we weren't there, and then had a networking feature that allowed people to see each other on a screen and to talk, and then we shifted to another table, and then 15 minutes later we shifted again, and it was really nice. And let me tell you, I got so many incredible compliments about the whole weekend that everybody was saying it was phenomenal, and it exceeded their expectations, and where can you go to have that kind of thing, happen for I think it was like $63 a month, or for $63 to be able to come to it.
Yeah.
I mean, conferences, as you are, $300, if you want to go in person. But
yeah. So
it had a lot of nice features. Again, people could download the presentations. They could take a look at them. It had, they can now take a look at them because all the sessions are recorded. So UVA is the name of the tool, and in fact, I got it told to me that it was used for the International UFO Congress that Alejandro Rojas has, and so he shared that with me, and we looked at different tools and we set it up, and it was just incredible. But more importantly, it's because I've been working on this for 6 months to be able to set this up, and there are 6 individual tools that I had to integrate to be able to make it work seamlessly, and so that was a bit of a challenge. That's why I've got additional gray hairs and and everything else. But
well, it's a silver fox. You're a silver fox.
No kidding. But it turned out really, really well. And like I said, I'm getting people just hitting me up with an awesome conference, great conference. The presentations or the presenters, we had Hal Putoff as our opening. A lot of people just absolutely love Hal, and I do too. And he did a fabulous opening on looking at shifting from an intelligence problem with this thing to a scientific tact on that, and how do we do that? Yeah. And we had Dr. Matthew Shadegas who talked about dark matter and UAPs. We had Robert Powell talking about a statistical way of dealing with UFO reports, and how we can weed out the things that we really don't want, that are IFOs, if you would.
Well, that's the one I caught was Robert Powell's conference, and I really loved the actual counts relative. I almost thought of it as the Electoral College of UAP sightings. You would think that it's California and the big states that would have the most UAP sightings, but in fact, it's not even new. What was it? It was I know Maine was one of them. Arkansas was one of them. These states in the middle. But the one that was interesting about the Arkansas group of statings was, there was a very very secretive Air Force base there where they do fly a lot of not experimental aircraft, but very triangular looking aircraft. And so, and their flight pattern is above their test flight patterns is above those 4 states. So it makes sense that they would get a lot more of those kind of sightings. So that was really cool. It was just good data, a lot of good data.
Yep. And man, I tell you, just everybody was like, loving all the science that most of these guys were PhDs.
Yeah.
A number of them were PhDs. And so you almost like I had a college lesson, if you would, in some aspect of this. And so it was very thrilling from that standpoint. But let me tell you, I've been like looking, because I couldn't focus on all the stuff that was on, like, the collaboration. Right. Because it was so focused on controlling the time and everything else. Right. That I'm starting to now go back and look at all the conversations, and wow, some of the conversations were extremely deep and very well done. And then we had also 2 tools that we featured: Skyhub's tool, as well as the UFO DAP that Ron Ulch has got. And again, it was neat to be able to see how we're, advancing the technology to be able to go out and collect the data that we need, and a whole lot of data, and bring it back in these tools. And so I'm encouraged by even that development that's going on. And I think a lot of other people were as well.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry. We just got $100 donation. I had to call it out. That's incredible. So starting the interview off right, where's your tie, Rich? My question is, that's okay. It's okay. If you didn't catch the beginning, he's had a long weekend. He's been in a tie all weekend, so he's doing the easy route today. So we're not busting too many chops. But his question is, what part / how much of the defense industrial complex, Lockheed, Raytheon, BAE, etc., do you think is responsible for the slow roll to disclosure? God, thank you for that $100 question. This is one of our new Patreons, so thank you. Yeah. Damn, that's amazing.
Well, I'm going to try and see if I can give it a $100 response.
Yeah, please, Mr. Hoffman, please.
So anyway, going back. And let me clarify that I catch hell if I don't wear my bow ties. I mean, let me tell you, I really do. In fact, people say I'm abducted if I don't wear it.
You know what it is? Well, it's probably an evil version of yourself. Instead of a goatee, it's the bow tie. So maybe we're talking to the evil version of Rich Hoffman right now. Yeah. But hey, it's your trademark. It's what people love to see on you. So that's cool.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'll have to have my wife go back and get the bow tie, and I'll put it on. But anyway, let me go back to talking about that, because that's an excellent question. It really is. It is a $100 question. So I'm a defense contractor. Okay, so consequently, I work for Army Materiel Command, and I do know that in my contractor role with them for the last 26 years that I've been with them, as a contractor. You come into the organization, and you're quasi-government, if you would. Yeah. You kind of like get to be involved in meetings and things like that, talking about the DoD problems, and the Army's, in my case, the Army's problems and stuff like that. And so I work in the IT world and stuff like that from a strategic standpoint as well, putting together strategic level documents on things like wireless and some other things. But let me clarify that that role. You kind of get tied down into it from the standpoint you have to sign non-disclosure agreements, and and I've got access to like classified systems, so then I'm constricted in terms of agreements that I have to sign on that, and those are lifetime types of things. And so but what I'm trying to tell you is, like, in those worlds like Lockheed, Raytheon, and BAE, and on all those other ones that are working out there, they're not sitting there with the government necessarily. They're out there creating stuff. They're out there experimenting and on the edge of development.
Right.
And one of the things that I've always suspected, of course, I'm in government meetings all the time, so I get to hear government discussions, right? So, but if you're working out in these companies, you're a great place to hide things, because I can't send you a FOIA, and that's shielded by the FOIA rules. And let me give you an example of that. When we did the Agua Dia study in Puerto Rico, okay, let me give that as an example. The control tower you would think, well, I'd be able to FOIA them. Well, guess what? The FAA contracts with a company in Tennessee to provide the control tower stuff. So when you go out and you put a FOIA request into them, guess what? They're not subject to the FOIA. So you want to get the control tower people to validate what you said, what they had with the conversation with the pilot, and you can't get it, you know? And so it's a great place to hide things. It's a great place to shield that, and it allows government people to be able to say, well, I don't know anything about it, you know?
So I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that why we don't have the audio for that Agua Dia footage? Because the other half doesn't give the. I mean, I don't remember there being audio with that footage. Was there?
No, there wasn't any audio with that. So I mean,
but is it because the one half of the communications was privately owned and you weren't allowed to post it, basically?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for communications between the tower and the pilot, and you can't get it.
Wow, that's
you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So there's a very strong potential that if you look at it over the years, it's a great place to be able to move the stuff to these corporations, and that makes perfect sense as well. Let me put it back to you another way.
Yeah.
If I've got some real hot technology that I got from some craft or something, or some great stuff, who's going to develop that? Well, guess what? It's going to be those like companies like Lockheed, Raytheon, and everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're a great place to send information to because they're going to help put it into practice.
Yeah.
In other words, you get what I'm saying. So, like, let me give another example. So, within the government, like, when I was dealing with Blue Book people up in Dayton, Ohio, we had the Foreign Technology Division that was up there, right? So that's where the R&D was. So certain things would be sent to that R&D shop, and then they would do the breaking it apart to see how it worked, you know, and how it flew and everything else, right? And so we can take that intellect and be able to apply it to any future designs that we wanted to develop, right?
Right.
And if you think about it, you know, the memory metal from Roswell, send it up the right path, they would take it over to Battelle Memorial Institute, a great place to shield it. And Battelle Memorial Institute now would have that ability. And if you look at the records on things like shaped memory alloys, you'll find out that that's the bendable metal that we're actually now using. Well, guess what? That came out of Battelle, and Battelle also fed it to like other labs and everything else. So it's a great place again to hide things that you don't want discovered, and those corporations are set up to be able to leverage that technology in the right way, right?
As having been.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, go, Mike.
Well, no, I was just going to say, having been in this industry for over 20 years, I mean, you've contracted with, you know, an extraordinary amount of companies and directly with the U.S. government. I'm curious, what specifically, like, what rumors have you heard, or what whispers really inspired you to start digging deeply into this potential for materials in within these organizations? Like, what inspired you to start looking closely at it?
Well, let me tell you, I guess, you know, it's an interesting situation to be, number one, in the DOD, and you have a cube there. And my little cube is decorated in UFO stuff. You know, and so guess what? You know, I got people that walk up to me and say, hey, you know, let's have a private conversation, right? Because nobody wants to go up and say, hi, you know, let me tell you, tell the world about it, right? But they'll have a private conversation. So you hear private conversations, just like I did when I actually gave a presentation out at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the Foreign Technology Division area back when I was younger, and I gave this lecture to all these scientists, and I said I had like, you know, maybe like 30 or 40 people in the room, and I said, how many of you have ever witnessed a UFO? And I think one nervous hand went up, and I saw a light once, and that was it. Well, guess what? When the break came and afterward, I was pummeled with everybody walking up to me and telling me their stories, right?
Right.
And one guy came up and said that my job was to go out and fly my aircraft. It had a gun camera on the front of it and try to see if I could film them. And then when I landed, they came and they took my film away. And then I ended up signing, like, you know, I wouldn't talk about it and everything else, right? So you hear that kind of a conversation with these guys, and they're very serious about it. That's what his job was, you know, to do. Right. And so what I'm trying to tell you is I've heard many stories like that from other military members, but they won't come out, and they're afraid of their careers. They're afraid of the stigma. They're afraid of the pushback. So that's the big challenge we've got even with the Navy. And it's going to take a while before that culture changes to where you can get some sort of reporting in, right? Anyway.
Yeah. Man, that was almost like a two-part question. I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, and that was, do you think there should be a timeline on, and I'm going to get to another donation question here in a second, this one here in a second. Do you think there should be a timeline on, say, like where we can FOIA a private company on technology, say, made 30, 40 years ago? Like, should we have access to those, since we gave a lot of these companies tax dollars to develop these technologies? Shouldn't we have access to the things that are no longer classified? I don't, obviously we can't have access to the newest and coolest stuff, but maybe some Cold War tech or metals or things like that they maybe develop.
Well, you have to understand that a lot of the development that's going on in these companies, they don't want shared with other companies. They're competing with them, right?
Right.
I mean, so everybody's competing. So, if you think that first off, FOIAs don't apply to the industry.
Right.
They don't apply to them. So you can't send them a FOIA.
Well, no, I'm saying something along those lines. I don't mean a FOIA specifically, but I mean, we would have to have some sort of like law that says that the federal government or somebody else can go in and ask a corporation to give up all their trade secrets, and that's you get what I'm saying, right? No, I get what you're saying. I'm just thinking, are they trade secrets if they're 50 years old?
Well, sure they are. I mean, there's technology that they came. I mean, they're still in development 50 years ago. I mean, if you look at the aircraft designs it takes us 25 to almost 50 years to be able to see the new designs that were developed 25 years ago, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like it's an immediate thing that they're out there and up and running. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that those engineering things that they spent money on to develop and stuff like that may still apply to the current designs that they're coming up with, and they don't want to share that. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's go back to the Aguadilla case, right?
Right.
So we wanted to know what that camera was on the bottom of that Dash 8 aircraft that was flying in Puerto Rico, right? We wanted to know specifically what that camera was so we could understand what we were looking at in the video. Make sense, right? Yeah. It was the camera that took it. Let's find out what we can. So I did the proverbial look. I found out that it was an L3 Westcam camera, and I think it was an MX-15 or something like that. Anyway, so I called up L3, and I started to go out from there, and I tried to get a hold of people that would be able to allow me to ask them some crude questions that our scientific team had come up with that we'd like to know, right? Such as, like what some very minute details about the camera's capabilities, the settings on it, and everything else, right? Well, I mean, we were just completely brushed off, and they, we're not going to give you anything. And so, I mean, there's, again, trying to be able to get those level of details. And to them, it was probably like, well, who are you guys?
Right.
You could be the Russians for all we know. I mean, you could be the Chinese. I'm not going to give you that stuff. And by the way, we developed this. We don't want you to know it, right? So there you go. And so that's the problem you run into with the corporations. Would I like to see that openness? Especially around this equation, I love it, because I've been at this for like 57 years, by the way, not 54, 57 years, and I still haven't got that kind of level of detail, and we have to go out and dig it ourselves as much as we can, right?
Are there any sort of laws that could be put in place? Because obviously we have to protect a corporation's ability to protect their intellectual property, but have you thought about this idea of what we should be pushing Congress to do in order to loosen up some of these capabilities so that we can access this information? I mean, there's got to be a way to think about this critically, create policy that actually allows for some of the at least the data that can be studied to come out. Like, have you thought about this from a policy position?
Well, I probably have thought about it many times over the course of the years, but I never really formulated a policy. But I mean, right. It is one of those conversations that at the headshed level they ought to have, especially since we're getting the conversation level now, right? Right. So I mean, if we're really getting those the Senate Select Committee members seeing incredible videos right now. They ought to be
Right.
saying, well, wait a minute, this is serious stuff, and I've never seen a video quite like that of an object coming out of the water or whatever they're going to see, right? That if they see that, then we need to take action on that. And oh, by the way, you might want to put into some sort of here's what it would be. It would be you change the code of federal regulations to where you'd specify that contractors would then have to supply certain pieces of information. And
they're getting public. I mean, this is public funding. These are taxpayer dollars.
Yeah,
right?
well, I understand that. I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that it's one of those things that's bound up in things like contracts, and those contracts have certain set conditions in them and restrictions, by the way. And so a lot of companies are bound by those contracts that they have with that, and that's how they continue to work. And then plus, there is that whole national security thing,
Right.
which you have to be concerned about, right?
So basically what you're saying is it's up to us. we're probably not going to get it from any contractor or any sort of government entity that's tied to any contractors because they don't share stuff. That's a bummer. There is a question from Zofa. She donated, or he donated a $20 pound. So thank you so much for the donation. And they say, thanks for your work, Rich. Simulations show dust in a plasma can form structures, and recently bacteria were discovered that feed directly on electricity. In your opinion, could this explain any of the UAPs we've been seeing?
Well, I mean, first off, let me clarify that the UFO or UAP phenomenon, right, is a very broad phenomenon. And what I'm saying to you is we haven't really necked down that whole area into what all is there. And let me give you an example again, what I'm trying to say. Okay, there's the Tic-Tac thing, which you already know, right? It's like, it looks like a physical thing, it's real, it's there, and it's performing incredibly, right? And then you have other people reporting other things that are called UFOs, which are basically a natural phenomena. And I've been investigating that. It's called Earth lights. And what that amounts to is there's a ball of gas that's created, and it lights up, and it moves against the wind, and it can go moving at 20 miles an hour in a direction or something like that. And like an hour from here is a place where since 1973, a lot of people were seeing these things called spook lights, right?
Yeah.
Well, those are objects that also get reported as UFOs. Okay, and then think about it. You also have classified equipment that's flying up in the air that people see, and they call it UFOs. And it's very rare that you can ever get those explained, because that would mean that the government would have to say, well, yeah, we had a classified flight.
Right.
Okay, so my point to you is that if you take a look at the statistics and broke this whole thing, there's a whole bunch of knowns, things that we can identify, which are planets, birds, and you name it, that we can identify, right? And then there's this whole other thing that's called unknowns that we've got. And in the unknown we can break those apart into, some are classified missions, some are experimental aircraft, and I'm necking it down a little bit at a time, right? And so there's still a subset there of objects that are legitimate that we see. And so going back to the point where some of these could be, objects that we just don't know yet. And science it's only a few years ago, or maybe like a decade ago, that we discovered that there's a phenomena called sprites in the top of clouds. Mm-hmm. How long have those been around? Well, they've been around forever, but we just now learned about it, right? So my point is that there's science hasn't even identified what these balls of light are about. I know chemically what they're made of: nitrogen, oxygen. There are also some sulfur in them, and there's also yttrium or some scandium and a little bit of iron.
Can I ask you what's the height range that those appear at?
Well, first off, they're about 8 foot in diameter, and they can go up to about possibly 10,000 feet.
Wow! All the way from sea level to 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that could explain a lot of stuff, because that when you say sulfur, that's something that people describe smelling sometimes when they get close to one of these things.
And so if you take a look at that, in Vietnam, a lot of these guys that were over there saw these balls of light, and they could actually smell the sulfur.
Wow.
Okay. And there's another interesting feature about those balls of light that I'm talking about is, and we were trying to like study it because we had drones and everything else out there, but we had heard about it before. Because this is a worldwide phenomenon, by the way. You have the situation where, dig this, I'm standing on one side and I see the light from it, and somebody's on the other side and they can't see it at all. And so it's almost like the photons, if you would, coming off of that light is only going in one direction. And so it's like, unidirectional as opposed to omnidirectional. And so you had also, even in Missouri in 1973, in Piedmont, Missouri, you had a situation where they were seeing it on the ground, but the guy flying over the plane couldn't see it from above. So, so again, you have that kind of strange, odd kind of like relationship with that phenomena. So there are a lot of other things out there that get misidentified, and it doesn't mean necessarily that all these are like a hard craft, if you would, like the Tic-Tac or something.
Right, or nuts and bolts,
Yeah, more like the nuts and bolts. Go ahead.
So what are your thoughts, Richard? I mean, we talk about this on the show all the time. We talk about this diamond in the rough idea and how 99.9% probably of everything that we assume is unidentified is probably identifiable. We just don't have enough information. And obviously the other 0.1% would be identifiable if we knew it, but from that diamond in the rough, that 0.1%, do you think there are, I mean, what are your thoughts on interdimensional, extraterrestrial, breakaway civilization? To what degree and hypothesis do you give merit to this diamond in the rough idea of extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, or breakaway civilization?
Okay, so let me make one additional point, and I'll come back to that. And that is because you just said something about, well, we can explain 90%, 99% of the things. Those are the things that are reported.
Right.
And let me tell you, the majority of things that are seen are not reported.
Right.
Nobody is talking about them, and they don't get reported. And let me tell you, I got that from every lecture that I practically have given, where people will tell, just like I just got through telling you about that right pat thing. Well, nobody in the room reported that. I mean, and other people that I talk with, how many people have seen something? They raise their hand. I said, how many reported it? None of them. So let me go back to the fact that there may be a lot more cases, and also stress that the stranger that the case gets, the less likely that I'm going to tell you about it.
Right.
What?
Especially if you're military.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a lot of sightings out there, and if we don't get them reported and we don't investigate them, we're not going to know what the heck's going on, right?
Yeah.
So now let's come back to your question, and I hope that I wanted to make that point to you, Mike.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Keep that in mind, right? I mean, the majority of people are not talking about this stuff. In fact, they're not, it's going to be hard pressed to be able to get them. So what do I think about all this discussion about breakaway civilizations, and what do I think about, what was that again? I'm sorry.
Extraterrestrial, interdimensional. Like, what are your thoughts on if we're actually being visited? What is your consideration for that when you really look at
that diamond in the rough? For
that diamond in the rough, the Tic-Tac or these sorts of things. Where do you think they're coming from? What sort of hypothesis would you make?
Well, I tend to be one of these people that if I try to make sense out of my 57 years with this thing of trying to make sense, I kind of like look for, I try to do this because I'm very strategic thinking. I look at the big picture. What's the big picture here? What's the big picture is that seemingly like that these objects have a tendency to want to spend time with the military, number one. Number two, that they've always been observed around, in, or near water, which to me is a very important thing. So military, obviously nukes is a concern and stuff like that, as well as, the water connection. And then if you try to make sense about this thing, it's like, well, they're here and a lot of people see them. And this goes back to what Dr. Hynek said. And I met Hynek back when he was in Dayton, Ohio at Project Blue Book. But they were called the space-time singularity, which meant that it seemed as though that the objects were there for the moment. You got to see it. And when it went away from you, where did it go? Did that object, like an aircraft, land somewhere? Did it go off somewhere else? And did somebody else see it along the trajectory, like an aircraft or a plane? I can watch a plane go across the United States, right? You know what I mean? I can do that. But here's an object that goes, it's there for you, and it's like literally gone. Where did it go? So, you know, I mean, okay, that being the case. Then you have this other kind of strange stuff that goes on in relationship to that, which, you know, you could go off on the deep end with this, but there's everything from the animal mutilation cases where there's like lights that people see that around that. You've got odd kinds of other things that are going on, and it's hard to figure that out. Then, you know, whether or not you really want to consider it, you know, if you took a look at the 95,000 level ceiling of the abduction phenomena or the experiencer phenomena, you'd find out that there's basically either they want you to believe that they're here and they're conducting some sort of genetic experiments on people, or collecting genes or sperm or something of that nature. And then here I am I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and I was on TV up there a lot, and I got called by the producer at the station, and he says, "Hey, by the way, there's somebody here that wants to meet you that's from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base." I said, "Really? Okay, well, no problem." And so he arranged it so we could meet in a little private glass enclosed room, and the two of us could be together. It turned out to be the chief of Aeromed research at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so I said, you know, just out of curiosity, why are we here? What do you want to talk about? And he proceeds to tell me that he has a team of scientists that have been looking at exchanging that we've been exchanging information with the Russian cosmonauts as well as our astronauts, and they're doing blood sample studies and studies like that. And he said, well, guess what? Our team of scientists project that if we lived in space for 2 generations, we would look like the little guys that are being reported in the craft.
Mm. 2 generations.
Said, yeah, within 2 generations, we would look like them.
Wow.
And I don't know. Again, I wasn't a part of the research, but these are published papers, by the way. And so the bottom line was that what he was trying to convey to me there was that, guess what? They're possibly us from the future. And so
I keep hearing that. That's that theory. Yeah. Or not even so much from the future. They're from every time. They're from the past. They're from the future. There is no time. Time is not a thing for them. It's not a dimension. It's just it's a sandbox.
And so what's really intriguing is like we had Dr. Michael Masters, who was at the conference this week, and if you look at Michael Masters, I mean, his whole hypothesis is that we are progressing. If you look at our evolutionary history, that we are basically evolving into beings that look like those beings. And then he even goes to the point of saying that, at some point, if you look at how we're interbreeding with it used to be that, like the people in Europe were all next to each other, and they interbred, and there's like a little bit of incest that goes on in the sense that the gene pool is getting merged and consolidated. And then we had our gene pool over here, and then Australia had their gene pool. Well, because we're moving around, now we're making that, and we're all becoming, down to a smaller gene pool. And the concept there is that over a period of time, that maybe that gene pool gets so, convoluted or compressed, if you would, or he had another term for it. I'm not thinking of it right now, but there isn't a whole lot of diversity there. And we've had multiple levels of incest, if you would, going on with a gene pool, right?
Right.
And so what he's saying is that, potentially they could be coming back and collecting genes to be able to use and to create that diversity, if you would, back in whatever their time was, or with them.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
So I'm trying to give you, this is all speculative.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's all, of course.
But I only ask because
it's for me to make sense of it,
Right. Well, and it's also for science to make hypotheses, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so I think that's why I asked you, because you have such a rich history with this, and I think you do.
That name. That's a good.
Sorry.
No, it's a rich history. It is rich.
Yeah. So real quick, let's reset the room, Michael. Let everybody know what's going down on Singularity Lab on Tuesday and what's going on the channel Wednesday and Friday. And also, we don't have a show on Thursday. Just to let the folks know about that as well.
Indeed. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you again, Richard, for being here. You're not going anywhere yet. You're sticking around with us. We got a few more minutes. We're going to get every ounce of your knowledge out of you before you leave.
Okay.
But I did want to say quickly, tomorrow, for those of you who are subscribed to the Singularity Lab, and if you're not, make sure you click my Linktree below so you can follow us over there. But we're going to be talking about drone technology and how to identify drones versus potential UFOs. So this is an incredibly important topic based on what Rich has been talking about here as well. Is so many things can be identified, but we need the knowledge to be able to do so. So understanding the difference between drones and potential UFOs, I think, is a very important topic. And we've got Jerry McGowan, who is an expert on this topic, joining us to discuss that. For those of you who
also a member of the SCU. Jeremy
who is
McGowan.
Also a member of the SCU. Exactly.
Yeah, we always forget that, but he is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. For those of you just joining us today, we've got Rich Hoffman right here. He's a BA in Organizational Communications from Wright State University. He's an information tech consultant and strategist. He's worked as a defense contractor for over 20 years, working primarily for the Army Materiel Command HQ with a variety of companies. And now he's with the SCU as a director of the board. So welcome, Rich, and thank you for being here.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, by all means. And great questions, by the way.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple more. So going back to the FOIA discussion that we were having before, we had another $50 donation from MP, and he's donated another $50 question here. So he's put $200 in the chat tonight, man. You are a monster. I know you've signed up for the Patreon, but maybe you might have the guts. I don't know. Just check with yourself one more time. You might. So the question is, so you're saying that FOIA requests need to be applied to the contractors before we gain anything beyond a reasonable doubt. Fantastic response. Thanks, guys. I think he was responding to your earlier response.
Yeah, I think I would restate that again, that's, if you look at where a lot of the good stuff is, I think it's in the contractor world and the industry world. And I think that they're experimenting and, with probably incredible designs that are way out there that we just don't know about. I mean, like going back to Ben Rich's at Lockheed Martin saying we could probably take ET home, So, I mean, yeah. I think that potentially, you could say that very much so that we're looking at right now at very advanced kind of directed energy kind of weapons. We're looking at utilizing concepts like you wouldn't believe in terms of just the laws of quantum mechanics and stuff like that. Think about it. We're getting into quantum computing. We're getting into AI and all this other stuff. So it's going to be incredible to see what happens over the next even 20 years or 50 years out. But and then if you look at the development we've got of our weapons and the material science, I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, we're pretty smart people, by the way, guys. But I mean,
and we keep evolving, and that's the reason we started the Singularity Lab show, because not only do we have this UAP UFO phenomenon, but we have the scientific breakthroughs, the technological breakthroughs that's leading towards a technological singularity, and scientists are even able now to start deducing that time travel both forward and backward is possible. And so it's like, we've got to expand and broaden our ideas about this entire phenomenon and process, right?
Well, without a doubt. And, one thing that came clear out of the conference that we had just yesterday was the fact that there's a lot we just don't understand at all. I mean, Dr. Matthew Strategist talked about it. Okay, so dig this. I mean, the fact that, if you take and he had a big pie chart where he showed, for example, 67% of the known universe is dark energy.
Right.
67% of it is dark energy. Right? And then dark matter was like something like, I can't remember the exact number, it was like something like 30%, right? Or something like that. And then you get down to the 5% of it, and that's not, there's a part of that that doesn't even relate to what we know as the physical universe that we understand. And we were like about 1% of the entire universe is the stuff that we know about. And we also talked about the fact, could these objects have been built, if you would, using dark matter or dark energy or something of that nature? Is that their propulsion system? And let me tell you, we don't know. We don't know. And so consequently, we're pretty smart, but yet at the same time, we're pretty stupid or ignorant. I mean, that's a better way of saying it, but we're pretty ignorant of a lot of things that we know of. So to say that I can't do time travel, I'm sorry. You know, spend a little bit more time and you'll figure it out. Maybe 100 years from now, maybe 200 years, maybe even 1,000 years from now that we'll figure that out. So, I mean,
are you familiar with 0 point energy? Have you heard of this concept?
Yeah. Again, we talked about that yesterday, and that is in essence dark energy.
Right.
Dark energy is getting down to that 0 point energy you're talking about. It uses the same kind of principle.
So NP's last question was, and I think this is in regards to the hypothetical we were giving. He says, "Are you saying we identified future quote us, the fundamental force that drives every religion in recorded history, Anunnaki to Catholicism? If so, I kind of agree. LOL."
Well, I mean, that's what Dr. Michael Masters' hypothesis is that he's worked with. And by the way, it's testable and it's falsifiable. You know how? All you have to do is just wait it out, and it'll prove that that's going to happen or not, right? So it's a hypothesis that is testable. You can put it through the rigor of science and have it work for you, and you can prove that it's true or it's not true, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of waiting through time before that. But yes, I mean, conceivably. And I'm not, and even Dr. Matthews says the same thing. That doesn't mean that every aspect of the phenomena has to be that. There could be multiple of these kind of situations taking place. In other words, you could have interdimensional craft, same time you could have time travel craft, you could have other kinds of things going on. But until you can work to be able to eliminate some of these hypotheses and prove them to be true or whatever like that, we're stuck with all these big guesses, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I feel like Rich Hoffman's having a good time when he says, "Dig this."
I know.
This
is a great conversation, Rich. We really appreciate you.
Let me ask you this. This is an interesting question I have. At this conference over the weekend, what acronym were people using? UAP or UFO? Did you notice one more? Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting to know.
Yeah, no, and we even started off the conference talking about that. I mean, we were saying that we're generically all using UAP, and we're using it in the context of it being that they're trans-medium, that they can go into the water, they can be up in the air, they can be up in space. And so we all agreed that was going to be the UAP term for the presentation. Term. Where we still struggle is when we talk about USOs. A lot of people just want to keep using that term as well as the UFO.
Right. Well, I'm just wondering. I'm curious to know if, from a marketing standpoint, like I know UAP is sort of the back term, the back term acronym that government officials and scientists are using, but it seems like we're missing an opportunity here, because if I go to the most remote island on the planet and I say UAP, nothing. If I go to that same island, I say UFO, I'm probably going to get a response out of them. So that's why that would be my only sort of defense of UFO. Other than that, I completely understand it. But in most cases, I just use both. So that way, one is correlated with the other and there's no confusion.
Sure. And where we struggle, and this is, even with me, it's like, let's see, if the object was in the water the whole time, then it's going to be a USO, right?
Right.
We don't call it a UFO because it's not flying, right?
Right.
It's swimming.
Right.
Anyway, if I put it in space, is it really flying? No, it's not really a flying, and that doesn't fly. Right. And so we struggled with that even in SCU. I said, how do we get to this point where we can use one term that works? And so when we refer to unidentified aerial phenomena, it's not what we use. We use unidentified aerospace phenomena. And we do that from the standpoint that it is air and space, that's aerospace. Right. But at the same time, if you talk to the Navy personnel, you also get them talking about the aerospace industry, because guess what? They launch from underneath the water. They launch missiles and stuff like that, so they are underwater, right, submerged. Yep. And they'll use the term as well and apply aerospace. So
I like that one.
So we've chosen that one just to so we can kind of like eliminate that problem you run into with the term. I wish that there were a better term. I mean, maybe it would be unidentified transmedium objects or something like that.
That's what I was just thinking, UTP, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question for you regarding the mainstream media narrative. Now that we see all of this picking up and it's on fire across the media, do you have concerns about the narrative being boiled down into something that fits a particular perspective or intention? I guess to further say, for example, people who have now heard David Fravor and Alex Dietrich's story will say Tic-Tac, and like people are like starting to pick that up. Like you say Tic-Tac, it's almost like in fashion to say Tic-Tac now.
Yeah, it's a problem,
right? Yeah.
Yes,
it's okay. So you do consider it a problem?
Well, I consider it a problem. So, like, let me point out to you that in the late 1800s, you had airships, right? They were called airships, right? And then you come along during World War II, and then suddenly they're all Foo Fighters, and then you get into the flying saucers. That's flying saucers. That's what they are, and then you get into this change of vernacular to where a lot of people were talking about orbs. Everything is an orb. I saw an orb, and everybody sees orbs. And then you suddenly get into it. Suddenly it's all triangles, or then you go beyond that, and it's suddenly now all Tic-Tacs. And so if you look at this from a cultural standpoint, and this is a very interesting study for sociologists and some others to look at it from a cultural standpoint. What we do is we create these terms to be able to refer to something, and they get catchy, and everybody starts using that term, and then we lose the sight of what that initially was in the beginning. Because a triangle-shaped object would you call that a Tic-Tac? No, I wouldn't call that a Tic-Tac at all. It didn't look like a Tic-Tac.
Yeah.
So we have problems with that, and that also is a problem in other countries, because remember, it's not just the United States. There's other countries with their own little terms that they've got. And so, and then let me go back to the Romans saw fiery shields. So, you get what I'm saying. It's like, there are all these big changes in the culture that comes up to try to apply the fact that they're seeing something. And there's a certain mythology, if you would, that if you looked at that, that's in play. And it's about the fact that people try to report using terms that they're familiar with, that they hear, or whatever like that, and it becomes a problem. And it becomes a problem from the standpoint that not everything. When you say a Tic-Tac, what do you think a Tic-Tac looks like? What do you think that means? And now, is that shape really a Tic-Tac? Or is it elongated like a cigar shape? Because they had cigar shaped craft.
Right, because you have those old have documents from back in '54 where people were talking about cigar shaped objects. I find this fascinating.
You use a cigar to be able to describe the fact that it looked like that, right? And so again, people are using their own vernacular from their own culture, if you would, however they get the news or something like that. That becomes the buzzword. So,
but the fact that Tic-Tac hasn't started a marketing program off of this is boggling my mind at this point. I can't believe it.
No kidding. I agree.
So I've got, I guess, a two-part question, and then I see Alex Sears in the background in the waiting room. Alec, do you have a question for Rich Hoffman? Give me a thumbs up if you do. Okay, cool. I'll get to your question in a second, and then Alex's question will be the last one we have for Mr. Hoffman. So it seems to me that this media push has a two-prong effort, and maybe you can add or subtract from this. I feel like the first number one goal of this media push, this blitz, is to get pilots to get comfortable reporting strange things in the sky, whether they be at a base, whether they're on a ship, whether they're in a plane. This idea that, hey, Alec Dietrich, David Fravor, Senator Rubio, the Navy has changed the protocols on how to report these things. It seems like, because of course we also have this double-sided issue with some of these things are Chinese and Russian drones, and they're not being reported because of the stigma and the taboo associated with weird things in the sky. So it seems like this media push is part one of it is to get pilots and credible eyeballs to report it. And then the second part of it seems almost not I want to say minuscule, but almost like, not as important, is this UAP discussion, this diamond in the rough discussion. I think it is a big part of it. And you said earlier that the Senate Intelligence Committee has seen videos, plural. So I'm curious, what do you think of that theory? Do you think I'm on the right track there?
Well, I think that's, I would, let me put it this way. I think that number one, there's multiple aims of this whole thing. Yeah, I think one of the aims is probably to make this a credible conversation, and that's the big push. But also the media is great about trying to push the senators and their representatives towards getting active about it. In other words, doing something friggin' about it instead of sitting on it for such a long time. And right. So, and I think that another part of that is well, when you get something like this report that's due, everybody's on board and they all want to get it out. And behind the scenes, there are a lot of pressure from the standpoint of the public now that's being applied, which is great because that's helping to push this discussion further. You got Lou out there, you got us pushing it, and other people pushing it. There are these incredible videos that are coming out and stuff like that. It's all helping to create this tremendous dialoguing that we have not had for a long time.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that is not just that pilots can feel comfortable about reporting it, but it's about the fact that scientists and maybe military people can have hallway discussions now about this and not be laughed at. And maybe open up and talk about it,
right?
Openly, right?
Right.
And so let's have the open dialogue. Let's have the open discussions. We're seeing in SCU a tremendous number of people that are coming on board that are scientists. These are professors in physics and all this other stuff. Before they couldn't even talk about it at their universities. Now they can talk about it. And so we want to encourage that, and that's what SCU is trying to do. It's trying to say, hey, we want to have a scientific dialogue, and we want to have this discussion. We want to talk about the propulsion systems. We want to leverage those physicists. We want to be able to get all these other disciplines engaged. And so let's have the dialogue and make it so we can finally come out of the closet and talk about it. So it's like it's taking the invisible college and making it visible.
Right.
Have you reached out to? Have you guys reached out to Sam Harris yet? I'm seeing him as specifically coming out and talking about this. I know the idea of public intellectuals, podcasters coming out and having this conversation is incredibly valuable. Is he somebody that might be of value to the SCU?
Well, first off, I don't know Sam. I've heard of him, but I don't know him personally or don't know much about him. So I have to get ramped up on that. But anybody that's going to be treating this seriously, and is in line with the direction that I'm telling you, ought to be on board, right? Yeah. We are a coalition,
right?
We're a coalition, and we're building partners. We partnered with KUFOS, we partnered with the UAPX people, we partnered with SkyHub, we partnered with NORCAP. I did a brain fart there for a minute.
That's okay.
So we're wanting to partner with a whole bunch of other organizations as well, because we're wanting to be able to have the dialogue,
right,
even going on between us.
But not only that, share information, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. And we're about making all of our stuff transparent. Every paper that we're putting together, we're putting it up on our website. You can all read it. Go up there and explore scu.org and read it. So we're trying to be as transparent as we can. We'd like to be able to, at the same time, to be able to build a relationship over in the intelligence community. In fact, we have team members that are helping us to do that, because guess what? We might be able to get some unclassified information, because we are a scientific group and a think tank, if you would, that they might like to have us to help study and to give some report on, right? So we are looking even at that channel to be able to open up the doors. And there's a number of us that, have clearances and stuff like that.
Ooh.
And so,
boy, okay, that opens up a whole nother can of questions, but we just don't have the time. We're gonna have to have you back, Rich.
When can you come back, my man?
When can you come back? And I also I want friends. Bring friends. Like, we need more SCU guys on the show. Because damn, yeah, this was a crazy awesome conversation. Real quick, I want to remind people, if you enjoy conversations like this, we have them all the time. And I know that this topic is going to be new for a lot of people, and they're going to be looking for a place to listen to conversations like this. I'm hoping this is a channel that you can share and not be embarrassed about. Like, we always come back, and Rich, I don't know if you know this about the show, but we always come back to the terra firma of, we know there's something in the sky because the Pentagon has confirmed it, the Navy has confirmed it, our pilots have chased it, we've got it on radar. It's beyond a reasonable doubt anymore. That just the fact, the starting point of this house is they're real. Anything past that, below that, we don't know yet. But this is why we made this channel, so we can have conversations like this, so we can do a little bit of speculation, but always come back to the reality of what we know are facts. So share the channel, like the channel, subscribe to the channel. I want to remind you, on Wednesday, we're doing our Skinwalker review with UFO Jane and Cristina. Speaking of Cristina, she has a show on Friday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, shifting the paradigm. And also we've got our interview with John Greenwald at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's going to be dope. Michael doesn't have a show on Thursday. No worries. He's gone actually for the weekend. I think we're going to have Rather come in and co-host on Friday, so that'll be super fun. So with that said, let's bring in Alec for one last question for Mr. Hoffman. And what is it? Hit it off with a really good one.
Mr. Hoffman, thanks for being here. I've been going around asking lots of people who have been researching for quite a few years one specific question, and that is pertaining to how we can get more information. So specifically, what kind of terms do you think we should be putting into our FOIA requests?
Ooh, great question.
So let me. So here's what the game has been. If you're with the game. Like, when they were looking for all those nuke cases, for example, they had to also include things like helicopters, because guess what? They found out, the group found out that they were using the term helicopters to be able to talk about these objects that were over there, and they would send up these jets going after helicopters. So you have to think very broadly, because I guess what I'm trying to tell you is also the people that are working in the government are aware of these FOIA terms. And they know to try to change things because it might be subject to FOIA. So I just want you to be aware of that. You'll hear these different descriptions. Obviously, a lot of these people are being called drones. They're using drones. Look at it was around the Omaha, and that was drones. Were they really drones? No, they weren't really drones. They were performing in ways that were, maybe look like they were drones, but who puts drones out 100 miles offshore, and what would they be doing that? So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's with the FOIA request, and of course John Greenwald is like, the super guy with that whole thing, but you really have got to keep pushing on that and trying all different kinds of terms. Like, obviously the UFO is not a term that they typically often use in the DoD world. They've used UAV. They've talked about UAVs. They talk about drones. They talk about, it might be helicopters that were over the nuclear facilities. So all I can say to you is you've got to try all different kinds of terms, and the list would be incredible, because let me put it to you this way: different services might have different terms for these objects. Some of them might call it a bogey. Some might call it something else. And so FOIA requests are like this huge search to be able to go after and to try to do this digging. And it's a very complex thing. But know that on the other end, where I'm at, they're not necessarily wanting to put those terms in play. And that's the way of protecting themselves, if you would. So that's also in play.
Gotcha. I'm zeroing in on Wright Patterson Air Force Base because I'm from Dayton. I grew up in the area. I went to Wright State like you did.
All right.
Good old Wright State Wolverines.
Yeah, Wright State Wolverines is right. Yeah. Okay. Well, then you know all about Wright Pat and stuff like that, and so even there on the base and stuff like that, I was dealing with the alleged, report of Hangar 18. It was underground and stuff like that, right?
First heard of that in second grade.
There you go.
All right, Rich. Well, we've had you for the whole hour, sir. We really appreciate you stopping by. It's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on the success of the conference. I'm sure it'll grow and grow and grow as we do it every single year, and I look forward to having you back multiple times. And please put in a good word to all of the boys and ladies at the SCU, because we want all of them. We want to talk to all of them. We want to talk about the SCU and what you guys are doing there as much as humanly possible, because I think not a ton of channels are doing that. We need to have the scientific conversation. We need to have PhDs on this show, because I'm not one. And relying on folks like you is awesome.
Yeah, well,
I dig having Rich on the show.
I dig it too. I dig it.
The next time I'm wearing my bow tie, so you better get ready for that.
Fair. All right, Mr. Hoffman, we will see you later, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. Take care, guys.
Absolute pleasure.
Bye, Rich.
Bye.
Preston says Jeremy McGowan has plenty of evidence of drones that can do anything described. If you want to hear Jeremy McGowan from the SCU, he will be on the Singularity Lab tomorrow to discuss this very topic. It's called Drone versus UFO, and we're going to be discussing all the capabilities of modern drone technology and how sometimes we may very well mistake them with UFOs. So all you got to do is hit the Linktree down below, click my description, and subscribe to the Singularity Lab and click the bell to get notified.
All right, so real quick, in case you're new to the channel, you don't know the gentleman below us, that is Alec Sears. He is the chief UFO correspondent at the Daily Caller and has researched UAPs for several years. Alec is experienced in the political realm and is very familiar with the inner workings of Washington, D.C. Always love having this guy on the show. And then we also have Mr. Jazz Shaw. If you don't know, Jazz Shaw is a big proponent of the dolphin UAP theory. He's a renowned editor and reporter for the Salem Media and the Debrief.org news team, and he's also a U.S. Navy veteran and loves to follow the strange and unusual. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Jazz Shaw. How you doing?
Always a pleasure, gentlemen, and that was a great segment you just had, and I really enjoyed it.
No, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. And then, of course, last but not least, Mr. Ratherby Squidding. He's a UFO enthusiast and researcher. His YouTube channel, Ratherby Squidding, focuses on the cutting-edge science, technology, and UAP news. Gentlemen, what a great panel we have today. What an amazing discussion we had with Rich Hoffman. Like, subscribe, share. Check out the Patreon, because the more Patreons we have, the more we can do shows like this. We do shows like this Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday here on the Unidentified Celebrity Review, and then we got Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Singularity Lab with Mike. So with that said, thank you for the $20 donation, MP, just for Jazz. Thank you, sir. That is amazing. Dude, this guy's been insane in the chat today.
You guys, you are just too cool. Before we get to anything else, I was watching, and a couple shows ago, I went and did like one super chat, and I was just like, hey, everybody jump in and match my donation. And there have been so many of you who have been supportive of the channel, and that's how this keeps going. And particularly Luis and Michael, and everybody else who participates. This thing is really growing. And it's you people that make it keep going, seriously. And, I can't thank you enough.
Oh, man, that's really sweet of you. Thank you.
And I just want to say, not to keep it too sweet here, but Jazz, you have done so much to help grow this channel, and the way you share it, and the guests you bring, and the way you prompt the super chats, man, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, it's a huge help.
I think we're all pulling on the same chain here. and I think it's bigger than all of us. Seriously, I don't say that just to be like gauzy. We're talking about something that is changing the world right now, and you guys are getting in there and being a part of the conversation and getting information out to people that might otherwise not have been exposed to it, or might not have gotten a lot of the details that are important. And it's not just this channel. This is going on in a lot of places, but I think this channel has really established a spot where we're getting to a lot of people that are just in the last couple of months going, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
UFOs? What?
Yeah.
What, Pentagon? What are you talking about? And there's a lot of people that got to get caught up to speed. And it's not just for us. It's actually not for us at all.
Yeah.
It's for all the other people who are suddenly being faced with a bunch of information that they might not have been prepared for, and they want to have that information. So I think you guys, don't thank us, thank you guys.
Yeah, seriously, and thank Susie Hickson. She just donated $14.99. Let's get Luis out of that Uber. I am with you, girl. I am so with you, girl. You have no idea.
I feel like
I
feel like we need dolphin sounds every time we get a super chat.
Yeah, well, we just got another one. What is Jazz's favorite alcoholic drink? Gin martini. Gin martini, straight up, right?
Well, that's redundant because any martini has gin in it, but it is a martini. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Well, as a bartender, I also have to know that some people do like those drinks that they call martinis that have other alcohol spirits.
Those are not people that Jazz speaks with.
He does not.
Those are barbarians. Just be clear.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's start with Alex Sears. So I texted Alex before the show. I was like, hey man, if there's anything you want to talk about, let me know. He writes, I'm still pretty hot about this New York Times headline. so lay it on us, brother. What do you got? Because I want your political perspective. We haven't been able to talk about this yet. So let's start there.
Man, it really gets to me on the Twitterverse, just because I've seen it time and time again where some news organization will put out a massive headline and a tweet, and it's just like a bomb drop, and it's like crazy, and then it gets these tens of thousands of retweets, but something in the headline or something in the article is just completely wrong, and they just got it like 100% incorrect. Like they need to issue a correction yesterday. Like it is poorly handled, would look bad for the publication, and so they change it. But then the correction gets like 10 retweets as opposed to the original, which had the 50,000. So there's no fixing it, right? So when you lead with the wrong foot forward, you can't make up for it by trying to replace your left foot with your right foot. Then you're just playing Twister with yourself. You wind up in a pile on the floor. It's not good, and we've seen it time and time again. I think this may be one of the first times that it's happened, just kind of like in the UFO reporting scene, because up until this point, the New York Times have been pretty good about stuff. I said this in a Twitter hangout or whatever it's called. It's like Clubhouse, but for Twitter, whatever those are called.
Yeah.
I said this
Spaces
Thursday. Yeah, Twitter Spaces Thursday night. You shouldn't hate on the authors of the article necessarily, because anybody will tell you that the reporters don't necessarily write the headlines. So this is a misinformed or low informed editor who read the lead, took the wrong thing from it and blasted it out, and that is it causes a lot of poor repercussions, because everyone sees this headline, which sorry if I haven't repeated the headline yet. It was Pentagon like this says that UFOs are definitely not aliens or something along those lines.
Yes.
Like they completely discounted the idea that this could be anything other than a terrestrial foreign adversary, basically. And that's just not true.
I think it was no evidence proving that it's aliens or something like that.
I think that might have been the second headline. The first headline was really bad. It was like
really bad.
It specifically said not ET.
I think it just said no evidence of ET. And I think that in the correction, they took that off, or they said that there's no evidence for and no
or
evidence against.
Right, which was the better headline and the more appropriate headline, and the headline that actually spoke to the article. And I shared your frustration, Alec, and we were both on that Twitter space that night, and I had a few cocktails and I was pissed off, but I was impressed. With I believe UFO Twitter for pounding on the New York Times. They changed that headline within 2 hours of it coming out. So I was very impressed with UFO Twitter, whether it was Gaddy Schwartz or whoever. They're all connected to UFO Twitter, God damn it. And I was impressed.
Well, I thought that was the most impressive part. If it just wasn't UFO Twitter, it was other journalists from other reputable news sources going, hey, what the F? Like, that's BS. You guys need to change it. You know, it's a terrible headline, but you know, of course, they worded it in a more corporate fashion. But and then on top of that, you had the veracity in the teeth of UFO Twitter. But you're right. I mean, like it changed in 2 hours. I mean, that's, if there's anything to be said, that's a positive to be taken out of it. No,
we got two journalists on the panel tonight. Jeff A says normalize letting journalists write their own headlines. What Jazz, Alec? What do you guys think about that?
Well, Alec is in the same end of the field as me from two different organizations. But yeah, I wrote a lengthy article that actually praised the New York Times because I published the original headline they had and then the corrected headline they had. And the corrected headline included the phrase, but they can't rule it out. And that was all we were looking for. Nobody was saying it was aliens.
Right.
It was just like, but we don't know what it is. That was all we were asking for. And I know Alec was looking for the same thing. No, until you wheel out an alien body or some piece of metal that we can identify from the planet, we don't know. Nobody knows. All we're saying is, well, it's not us, and it's probably not the Russians, probably not the Chinese. Okay, so who is it? Okay, let's talk about that. But the list of suspects is getting kind of thin.
Right, but how do you? That's the problem. I get your frustration so much. It's like, how on earth can you come out and say what something isn't with no evidence?
They didn't do that. To be fair to the New York Times, they said that there was no evidence that they are aliens, which is an accurate statement. You know, to Jeff's point,
right, that's fair.
Unless you have aliens or a metal thing from a UFO, that's kind of what you have to say. But yeah, they didn't make it as clear that there's no evidence that it's Russian or Chinese either.
Right, but it was definitely something that could easily be misconstrued by your mainstream media consumer, no?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what I kind of took away from it...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Alex.
All right, I'm going to go there.
That was adorable.
Yeah. I'm
go for it, Alex.
It's the classic logical fallacy, right? It's an appeal to ignorance. You know, you can't. You know, no one has been able to prove the existence of aliens, so they can't exist. Nobody has been able to disprove the existence of aliens, so they have to exist.
And now, Alec, repeat that sentence and insert the word God.
Well,
right?
There you go.
I mean, isn't that a fair thing to say?
It is.
Can you prove God exists? Can you prove God doesn't exist?
Some would argue you can. Just saying.
Oh, somebody can argue everything, like gin is bad for you. And those people are crazy. So, but yeah, I get your point.
Rather, what were you going to say?
Well, I guess, defense of the New York Times, when I was reading that headline, kind of what I got out of it was, with this UAP task force, I thought that there was, potentially big things on the table. Potentially we would learn about the Intergalactic Federation that has been visiting Eisenhower in the 50s. Like there's this whole big alien history that maybe was true. So I thought that, them coming out and saying that, no, there is no evidence of aliens. We don't have prolonged contact with an alien race. That's what I read out of the headline. But, that's, me coming at it from a more knowledge than maybe the lay New York Times reader. So I wasn't that upset about the headline.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Kevin Childress with a $9.99 super chat says, "You guys need to spend energy looking at Energy Lab's system and interagency agreements related to UAP." I love the breadcrumbs Childress always leaves us.
Yeah. Well, Alec, you should probably write that down because you're the journalist.
I did. I wrote him a comment back in there. I said every time Kevin joins the chat, he gives me like 15 new things to look into. I need like 3 weeks of like nothing else to get through all of this material.
Just know we're writing them down, and this is a hilarious question.
My notes are getting long.
Well, that's good. You're the lead UFO. What do they call it? Correspondent. You know,
Yes.
That's good. You got weeks and tons of.
They call me the chief UFO correspondent, but it's just me. So there's like.
Jazz, the other day when you tore apart Andrew, what was going through your head? I agree with you, but would like to hear your perspective a few weeks out.
Really? We're going to do that again?
It was a $20 question.
$20,
NP, you get an answer because it was a $20 question, and we thank you. And I have no idea how much Bitcoin you had squirreled away to do this much sport. But, God bless you, dude. You're probably going to be disappointed to hear I've talked offline with Michael and Luis about this. My perspective hasn't changed. Was I a little less cordial than I should have been? Absolutely, and I've said that repeatedly. My basic premise has not changed with Andrew, and I've talked to Andrew offline about this. Everybody has their own opinion. But in the end, it has to be grounded in facts. I have no facts to tell you that UFOs are from Zeta Reticuli. I have no facts to tell you that the government has any crash wreckage or alien bodies. I don't know any of that. But if you come back to me and say, well, all they have is cold seagulls or a couple, balloons, well, then I expect you to defend your position as much as I'm defending my position. And so much of this are things that we actually can't nail down. We have a little data now. We have a lot more data than we used to have on a few cases. And I think those cases are worthy of examination. A large part of this, the jury is still out. And that's all I've said. I never said it was ETs. I never said it was the Russians. I never said it was us.
Right.
So
No, I'm not backing down a bit from what I said. I'm sorry I told him to go F himself. Oh, well, I'm a little bit sorry.
He's
A little sorry, just a little bit.
And my wife is checking in and just, saying, well, that's really a good day for me when telling you to go F yourself is the worst I do. So, but there's your take, man. You paid the $20. You got the $20 answer.
Do you think your wife will ever join the show?
No.
No, she's hilarious. No, she's hilarious. Look at this comment. She writes, "When dolphins show up with cookbooks labeled 'to serve mankind,' we're all fucked."
That's my wife, 100% true. If you want to have her on the show, trust me, go ahead.
Yeah,
maybe she'll do it. But I'll tell you, I've been living with this woman for longer than some of you have been out of diapers, and you're in for some surprises.
I bet. Yeah, I think that's why we want her on the show.
We want her on more now.
Yeah. If anything, she is more of a reason.
She is 1,000% smarter than me. She has better college degrees. She's a genius, and she's also just batshit crazy. The only reason she ever agreed to marry me.
Oh my God. Married about 25 years. Okay, so George, we should have her on for a Skinwalker review with you, Jazz.
That would be amazing.
That would be fun. So maybe I'm going to plant the seed now.
From the Skinwalker people if you have her on, because she loves the show. She mocks the show.
Yeah, well, we mock the show too. We all mock the
show.
We all mock the show. Yeah, no, she'd be fun.
And she says you've been married about 25 years. I'd like to see what happens if I tell my wife we've been married about 20 years.
Michael, do you want to reset the room real quick while we kick off the last half hour of the show?
You know, Luis, there's absolutely nothing that I would enjoy more than resetting the room.
Yes.
For those of you just joining us, we've got Rather Be Squidding over to your right, I believe. Rather Be Squidding is a UFO enthusiast and researcher. His YouTube channel, Rather Be Squidding, focused on the cutting edge science, technology, and UAP news. We've got Jazz, who is welcomed as the renowned editor and reporter for Salem Media and The Debrief, a U.S. Navy veteran, follower of the strange and unusual. And last but not least, Alec is the chief UFO correspondent at the Daily Caller. He has researched UAPs for several years. Alec is experienced in the political realm and is very familiar with the inner workings of Washington, D.C. Your lovely host, Luis, stands to your left. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, for God's sakes, what are you doing?
What are you doing
with your life?
Subscribe. Ring
your whole life.
And as far as the mainstream media outlets go, I appreciate you guys pushing Salem and The Debrief. The Daily Caller is one of the best outlets out there, really.
Definitely.
And if you want political news, there's political news. They cover social news. They cover science. And thank God for Alec, they cover the UAP topic. And they cover all sorts of weird stuff. So if you're not following the Daily Caller, go check it out.
And also, real quick, Mike, do you want to remind everybody what's happening on the Singularity Lab tomorrow?
As a matter of fact, Luis, I would. For those of you who have not followed the Singularity Lab, all you got to do is click the link below in the Linktree next to Michael Mataluni and follow the Singularity Lab. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell because we are going live at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow with Jeremy McGowan to discuss. He is a drone expert. So if you are interested in understanding the radical technological pace of drone development, you are not going to want to miss that show. Like, subscribe, share.
Excellent. And also, just to remind you, Wednesday, Skinwalker Ranch Review with Cristina Gomez, UFO Jane, and Jazz Shaw. We also have possibly Stephen Greenstreet. I actually just got to write him back to see if he's available for a half hour on Wednesday. If not, we're going to work it out to where he comes probably on the Singularity Lab here in the next week or so. But
if not, apparently we're going to get my wife. So
yeah, there you go.
Her instead of Stephen Greenstreet.
Excellent. She's
review.
in. She's in. Excellent. And then also this Friday, we've got John Greenwald from the Black Vault. We're going to be discussing a lot of fun things with him. I wish Michael was going to be here, but we're definitely going to be. I mean, Alec, you're invited to that conversation for sure. Rather will be here. He'll be helping me co-host. So that's going to be a really, really interesting conversation. So stay tuned for that. So definitely ring the bell. So what?
Well, one last thing. So Aaron Desario found his tie, and he's going to be joining the panel tomorrow on the Singularity Lab.
Boom!
So super exciting.
Well, he doesn't have to wear a tie, though, right?
I didn't tell him either way. He just said he found it, and then I just said, right on, my man.
Great.
Rebel, people. Rebel. No tie.
So about that chest hair.
So this next topic is we got to get through it quickly, but it's probably the thing I wanted to talk about most today, and that is the UFO animation with Elizondo writing a Tic-Tac. And I made a little cameo in this video. So, I mean, this channel's getting big when my face pops up in this video. Michael, do we have the link for that?
I sure do, my brother. I'm so excited to share this. So let me pull it up right now.
Can you just wipe out the screen and play that so I can walk away for a second and go get this?
Yeah. Go. Okay,
so I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna turn this into
oh
a big
my
screen.
God! So this is very flattering. Here? Okay, this is me.
This is
me.
Are we sure?
Yep. I was private messaged this image 3 days ago from the gentleman who made it, so I'm 100% sure it's me. Okay, so let's play it.
We need to set it up at all, or just
how do you set this up? How do you set up this video? I mean, this is the most batshit crazy thing I've ever seen in my life. There's no way to set this video up. It has been the thing on fire for UFO Twitter today. So So yeah, let's let's play it. What is it loading?
Yeah, here we go.
What you're telling me is you consider running for Congress? Well, do it! Are those muddy boots in my house? The thing with me and muddy boots is we don't get along.
I'm so sorry. I have to take this back real quick because I just love the way Elizondo is standing here. Like,
yeah, he's like a supermodel. Look at him. He's so slender. I mean, compared to my chunked ass face in the back, I mean, damn, dude. He really made him look good.
Oh my god.
Muddy boots is we don't get along. Hey, come back here, clean this shit up. My wife's gonna kill me. Thank you for your support, though.
Thank you for your support, though.
Yes!
I mean, what is happening?
We need to see his garage.
Hey, stay still. I just want to talk to you. Oh, fuck.
Good old Mick West. Good old Mick West cameo.
Is that Greer?
It's Bob Lazar.
Oh,
Lazar, listen.
Are you? No.
Are you? No.
Dude, what is that? Okay, so let me share my screen. Jazz is back. Let me share. I just want to share the guy who made this and let you guys know where you can follow him on Twitter because he's been making videos like this. So it's Jack Heliquin. His Twitter handle is, where is it? @ Jack Heliquin. So go check him out because he's popping these videos up all the time. And
Dude.
it's absolute bananas.
Did anyone? Was anybody watching Alex Sears' face while we were watching that? Was anybody paying attention to Alex Sears' face? While we were watching it? You can look at his face now, and you'll get the similar reaction.
Okay, so you know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm not 100% sure if Jack Heliquin made this. I think he did. I can't find the original. I thought he did too because he's the guy who sent me the image a couple of days before. So I hope I'm giving credit to the right guy because I think there was another guy. Maybe he's working with someone else. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, what is that? What is that, dude? Like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Anyway,
I love the comment that this is gonna age like fine wine. I think that's so true. Like, we're gonna look back on this in like 5 years and be like, mwah, oh, just the flavors.
Oh, delicious. I want to open it up with a nice slice of ham. Okay.
My favorite thing about this is that out of all of the, what is it, 3 billion users on Twitter, there's maybe a couple 100,000 people who will see that and be like, oh my god, that's hilarious. And then the rest of the world, if they watch it, they're going to be like, what the hell is going on?
Just happened. Yeah,
that is.
You know, we have no idea what's going on. But I'll tell you what, by the end of this month, a lot more of the world's going to know what's going on.
Amen, brother.
Oh, yeah.
That video
Jubilant June.
is probably going to be a lot funnier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, from what we've been hearing, there's some big news coming very, very soon.
Look at Alex's face. It's still.
Now he's dying. He's just gagging right now.
Worst thing I've ever seen.
It was the worst thing you've ever seen?
More time?
I thought it was great. Here's to you, Alec.
Yeah,
I love it.
Where's my drink? I need a drink now.
I love it. Okay, all right, let's get on to the next thing. So the next thing that we're talking about is Skyfort. Skyfort.
Yeah.
Coming this summer to a theater near you. Skyfort. So what the hell is Skyfort? Okay, right? This is something that Elizondo had promoted on CNN, and it
Not intentionally,
apparently. Not intentionally, but I mean...
Maybe not intentionally.
Maybe not intentionally. Yeah, that's... I just don't believe that Lou Elizondo doesn't make moves without knowing 100%. Well,
no, but he could have. But let me ask you this, Jazz. Could he have prepped the news organization that he's got something coming soon, but he's not ready to release it yet, but they released it early? Or do you think this is just a ruse?
Gee, do you think Lou Elizondo would talk to people inside the media structure about something he was about to talk about and let out a few hints? No, Mike, that would never.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of with Jazz on this. I think it was a sneak peek. It was like a little teaser trailer, essentially. Like, I think it was some chum in the water to get people going, Skyfort, what is Skyfort? Somebody to give me something on Skyfort! You know, like...
and that's immediately when I saw that. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I said, I thought it was the first thing I did. I tweeted UFO Twitter. What is Skyfort?
What is Skyfort?
Yeah. And we immediately got Jake from It's Redacted to come out. Jake Mann from It's Redacted to come out on that Twitter post and say, hey, actually, I'm a co-owner of that company. We've got a lot coming out about it. I said, can we get an interview, Jake? And he said he doesn't do very many interviews. It's Redacted was highly produced, but if he does decide to do an interview, he was going to come to us first. So UFO Twitter has to help us hold Jake accountable.
Yes, please ask him to come on the show. Go to It's Redacted right now and say, Jake, please come on the show. Please go on Unidentified Celebrity Review. That would be so great. Because we've got a bunch of questions for Jake. I tried to get him on the Big Phone Home because he was supporting us for the Big Phone Home, and
Jake's awesome. Yeah,
no, he's awesome, dude. He's a great guy. I've never met him face to face though. I'd like to put a face with the work, because he does some of the best work out there. What were you saying, Ralph?
It's really interesting because they stopped posting on their channel a couple months ago. And everyone was like, what are you doing? Come on, keep on, make more videos. And they kept on hinting, we got some really big things brewing that we're working on. So, I'm really excited to see what happens.
I for sure know they got some stuff brewing. I don't know specifically what. I have an idea. I have ideas. I mean, there's.
Can I toss out a question?
Yeah, for sure. Please save me.
For Lou Elizondo. All jokes aside, you've got the Skyfort, the next Marvel superhero, whatever. In other interviews, Lou has talked about, don't make me run for Congress.
Yeah.
I get a sense from the feedback from our readers that there's a brewing sort of thing like, does this undermine Lou Elizondo? Because he's been the champion for disclosure. He's been the champion for, throwing the doors open and getting all the information. But he's like, well, I might run for Congress. And now I might have this superhero thing, whatever. Does that help the movement or hurt it? Does it help lose credibility? Because I know I covered politics for a long time, more than I cover UFO stuff. If Lou Elizondo runs for Congress, let's say, are we just feeding fuel into the fire to say, oh, well, none of this was ever true. It was all a psyop. It was just a way for him to get elected to Congress, or a way for him to get a movie deal or something.
Well, we asked him this question.
Not that I don't want Lou to do well for himself.
Right.
But I mean, it is such a judgmental society, isn't it? And how does everybody balance these ideas, these suggestions, and what do we do with that, guys?
Such a great question. I can see Squidding like chomping at the bit to answer it, so I'm going to shut up.
Real quick, Tina. Yes, I'll be there. Go for it, rather.
Well, I guess I kind of just lost my train of thought there.
Well, we asked. Well, we've had this conversation already on the channel. We've theorized about this. First of all, what state would he run in? And we asked him these questions. What state would you run in? Would you be Republican or Democrat? What would be the Lou Elizondo platform? Because we expressed to him that our fear was that if you became a congressman, that the ability to do a conversation like this diminishes. That goes bye-bye. Like, he's no longer having these conversations with smaller channels, and the access in the conversation, I think, kind of stops if he does that. And his thing was, well, maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe we set aside a time every other week or every week where we have a 2-hour discussion and we invite other congressmen or senators to have this discussion with us and talk about and dedicate some time to this UAP discussion. I was like, well, if you put that on your platform, if you promise that, if that's part of your campaign as you're running, I'm in. Like, I would love to. I think that's a valuable thing. If somebody went into Congress and started having a weekly UAP meeting, I think that's valuable. But, you know, I agree. I would never want him to do that, because I love that he comes on this show, you know, basically once every month at this point, you know, once every other month. And he always, you know, we always love having him on. And I think, yeah, what do you guys think? Rather, did you think of what you were going to say?
And I guess, you know, kind of in terms of Skyfort, you know, my interpretation of this endeavor is that I feel he probably was feeling some of those challenges, and maybe being with TTSA, when he was involved with that, he probably got people telling him, hey, being involved with Tom DeLonge and this kind of stuff is hurting your credibility. And so that my interpretation of this is that he kind of cut ties with TTSA and is trying to hook up with some more legitimate people. You know, It's Redacted is a great show. I don't know about the other people involved in it, but, you know, it seems like some very respectable people. So that's kind of my read on his current move here.
Yeah. And Alec covers the same swamp stuff that I do. And my big concern is, does Lou realize, and he's not a stupid man, I'm assuming he does, a backbencher first-term House member from a state that has, correct me if I'm wrong, Alec, one representative, maybe two? I forget.
By the way, Jazz, that representative is Liz Cheney.
Right. So if he replaces Liz Cheney, now he's a backbencher that just came in on a platform that 99% of Congress isn't talking about. So if you come in, well, I'm going to make this my key agenda item. If you don't already have several hundred people in the House who are like, dude, totally right, we need to be talking about this. Well, if you do, then great, you're going to move the ball forward. But if that was the case, then they didn't really need you, because they were already ready to do that, right? So I just, backbenchers don't have that much impact. So it concerns me that perhaps Lou doesn't, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, doesn't realize, if I want to run for Congress on the basis of UAP disclosure, you need a lot more items than that to actually get any power. Otherwise, you're a backbencher that is voting on one item.
So I have a theory on that, and I agree with you, Jazz. Elizondo is an incredibly intelligent man, and I think
I don't think that would be his main agenda. FYI, I don't think that would be the first thing on his platform. I think it would be in there. Yeah, no way, no. It would have to be things. It would have to be things that serve his constituency that would have to be on that platform. It would have to be concerns of that state, of his neighbors. Those would be the things, I think, number one on the list. And then, you know, he would probably, because it's inevitable that the question's going to come up in debates. You know, like, they're going to ask him the UAP question every single time he gets in front of a microphone if he runs for Congress. So in that regard, you know, it'll get out there, but I don't think it'll be a number one platform thing.
So
from what I understand.
Let me offer this. And so when we did ask Lou about that, he did go deeply into his politics, and he shared a lot of things that he would want to do and focus on for his constituency. But that being said, my theory is that Elizondo is an incredibly intelligent man, and this idea of running for Congress was a strategic threat. What he was doing was positioning himself publicly to make a threat towards Congress so they would act on this issue. I don't think he has any intention of running. I don't think he ever had any intention of running. I think that was a very well articulated and premeditated strategic threat. That being said, when it comes to Skyfort, as Rather Be Squidding said, is virtually TTSA reinvented with Lou Elizondo on the board of directors. Now you've got Jake Mann, you've got Cahill, you've got an incredible group of people here, and what they want to do is they want to be government contractors. They want to build entertainment. They want to create entertainment, and they want to create consulting. So they're basically doing the exact same thing as TTSA, but they've separated themselves from TTSA, and they're building it on their own because they can. And that's where I think they're going to be focused. And I really think Elizondo wants to be the czar of disclosure, and he wants to be the kingpin of this thing.
Would it go for it, Alec?
I'm kind of with Mike. I don't think necessarily that Blue ever had a mind to run for office. I think it was probably a joke or something that someone made, and he ran with it for a couple weeks, and then, it spiraled into UFO Twitter, and we ran with it on behalf of him for a couple of weeks. And
I don't know. I'm going to push back a little on that because in almost every interview he's had, in most cases, he's brought it up first. He's the one bringing it up. So I don't know if it's a threat as more planting of a seed. Because if let's say he seriously is thinking of running, it's not going to be this term. It's going to be in probably, 6 years? That would be the next...
24.
2024?
No,
okay, so 3 years?
Absolutely not, Lou.
What?
That's a political eternity, 6 years.
Right, I'm saying...
running... Yeah. It's next cycle. It's next midterms.
Right, but I'm saying, but next cycle is still a pretty long ways away. So if there's significant, say, I don't want to label it disclosure, but let's say there's significant movement on this disclosure discussion in the next 3 years before he runs, and he's responsible for that. That's why I say I don't know if it's an empty threat as more of I think it's planting a seed, and let's see what happens with the seed. If it sprouts, then maybe run. If it doesn't, then don't.
The only way I see that being kind of like the accurate thing is if Lou has even more information than he's letting on, and he's expecting something massive to come down, and he wants to be involved with the legislation surrounding it. That's the only reason he would ever want to go and run for office in 2022, is if he's expecting this kind of like massive disclosure, and then it's almost like a paradigm changing thing, and then he wants to be at the forefront of legislators running on this issue to legislate around it, because if we find out that aliens are real and they want to have some kind of contact or trade or whatever with Earth, we're going to need an entirely different front than what we put up right now. That's going to have to be more unified, and that's going to require a lot of lawmakers.
If that's the actual case, though, Lou's whole point for quite a while in many interviews has been he has admitted he's on the Al-Qaeda ISIS kill list. He's not somebody that ever wanted to be a public figure. He lives out in the middle of nowhere with high security. You want to go get elected and go move into DC where shootings are common all the time. He has a family he has to take care of. He's already dedicated his entire adult life to the service of the country. He's been gone constantly. He's been in danger. Is he at the point? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm giving the guy too much credit. I just think he's too sincere. And I think at this point, he would like to get the job done, put this to bed, get disclosure finished, and go back to his ranch. I mean,
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm stupid.
I don't think so. But I think you're right. I don't think he's trying to go to Congress, but I do think he's very happy to be a part of the disclosure movement. Disclosure is not going to be done and put to bed forever. Like, this is not going to happen. He's going to position himself to make a lot of money over a long period of time, and I got no issue with that. He can make all the money he wants. I'm not saying that's a negative. I'm just saying it's a very sincere possibility, and he wants to be a part of this disclosure process. So I think he's doing it for the honor of finishing the job he started, and he's doing it to make a shit ton of money over the long term.
Yeah, I'm fine with both of those.
I'm fine with it too. I'm not arguing with it. I'm just telling it like I see it.
Yeah, I mean, well, he did start. He's essentially starting. Well, I don't know if he started. We just still don't know the details of this whole Skyfort entity. But it seems like you're right. Like he's starting his version of To the Stars, and it seems to be a little more sophisticated and a little more grounded in reality. There's no loose cannons on this team. There's nobody going on Joe Rogan saying, "Yeah, check out this video.
Louis
Look at this video," and like it's So I keep equating this to a huge tidal wave that's coming, and this people on this panel, people pushing this discussion, are the people sitting on the beach watching the tide go out. And there's going to be a huge rush of curious people, and he's setting this company up to take a brunt of that rush. And I think that's really, really smart. It's a really smart move. It's needed. It's absolutely. It is a service, and I can understand.
Can I be clear?
Yeah,
I'm a capitalist. If that's what Lou's doing, and it still serves the public interest for what we're all interested in,
that's the key, though. That's the key.
No judgment on my part.
Right.
Agreed.
Make your money, dude.
Yeah.
Move the thing forward. Do all of it.
Yeah.
I just think it's a little shallow to go, well, he just wanted to get a congressional seat. Because I think he's smarter than that.
He's way smarter than that. Way smarter than that.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
If you were running for Congress in 2022, like, wouldn't you already be setting the groundwork, like doing exploratory committees?
You see, that's why I don't think it's a 2022 run. I think it's the next term, if he's going to do it. Like, people do that all the time in politics where they don't, I mean, look what, who was supposed to run, Joe Biden, for example. Everybody begged him to run last term. He didn't run. And then he saw what happened. And then he started putting in the seeds to run in 2020. And here we are. He's president. Like they do political moves 8 years out all the time in politics.
I don't know, Louise. Joe Biden had, the political stature of being the former vice president. Lou has next to zero political stature. He just goes on CNN and Fox
Well,
News,
he's an American hero, though.
Luis and Alec
who knows
are
that?
both correct,
Who knows
by
that?
the way.
It takes a lot
anybody that goes and Googles me, you will find out I've run a couple of congressional campaigns. Nobody is starting a 2022 congressional campaign right now without having any bare bones network in place. Nobody that's going to win. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So you guys are both correct.
Yeah.
If it's going to happen, it's further down the road.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, only time will tell. But I mean, from what I saw on Variety, they've already inked a deal with Leslie Kean to tell the Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon story. So there's a film being processed. Now, I'm curious to know if Skyfort had anything to do with the signing and inking of that deal. And that'd be interesting to know, because that makes sense. If they're doing a multimedia facet of this, and they're sort of doing it in a more sophisticated way than Tom DeLonge, because Tom DeLonge's not a film producer. HBO Max knows how to produce a film, with all of the backing of Warner Brothers. So, that's a different kind of movie. Only time will tell. We're going to find out more about Skyfort. We've got 6 minutes left, and we still got 4 things to talk about.
And Luis,
in
by
6
the way,
minutes?
Luis
4 things in
will
6
be
minutes?
playing Luis Elizondo.
That would be great.
Both women. They're both actors. They both look vaguely similar in terms of
I would just have
status.
I would have to work out a lot.
You're very muscular. You need a few tattoos.
Grow the goatee out.
That's going to be good.
Yeah, I could grow the goatee, and if the studio pays for a gym, I'll go to the gym, and I'll work my ass out, and I'll get super ripped, and I could totally play Lou Elizondo. I would love to play Lou, although I'm about 6 inches taller than him. But he is so.
Really?
I would not. He's not very tall. Not very tall.
Well, according to that video we just looked at, he's pretty tall.
No, he's not tall. If you look at the picture with me and him, my shoulder is sitting on top of him like this. He's not tall, but I still would not want to mess with that Wolverine.
Yeah, I'd love to see you on that movie. I'd love to see Jack Heliquin animated even more.
Yeah. That's exactly what the world needs. Another Jack Heliquin animated, hour-long movie would be just terrifying.
When the Unidentified Celebrity Review movie comes out, Jack Black will be playing you, Luis.
Fair. That's a fair comment. Okay, so real quick, let's just touch on this press conference at the Pentagon. I thought the cool things about it was that we got three questions, if I'm not mistaken. I was going to play the video, but we just don't have the time. I mean, here we are, 2021. We're getting 3 back-to-back follow-up questions on the UAP topic. Yes, they're let in with laughs, which I think eventually is going to disappear. Like, that's going to go away. So, I mean, quickly, let's go around the table. Alec, what did you think about it?
I think it's good we're getting the questions, but I'm with you. Like they're let in with laughs. Like one of the guys was like, I can't believe I'm even asking you about this. Yeah. But like the UAP report, I do think it's interesting that the Pentagon was just deflecting entirely to the DNI and not like it looked like the poor guy was just completely unprepared.
Yeah. Mike?
Mine is exactly the same as Alex. Alec.
Perfect. Rather?
I love it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, fair. Jazz?
Pretty much same, except I don't think it's all laughs. Watching the people asking the questions, I sense a bunch of discomfort. Like, God, I wish I didn't have to ask this, you know.
But I do asking.
I do think as more and more mainstream journalists ask these questions, and particularly the things that are going to be happening the rest of this week and the rest of this month, and we've all talked about that offline. That I think a lot of that's going to go away, and the people that are being forced up there to the mic and going, "Oh God, do you think it's aliens?" You know, and they just are like, "Oh my God, my job is draining away as I watch." I do hope, and I actually believe a lot of that's going to go away.
Yeah. Well, I was going to also say, Alec, the good thing about this mess up on the New York Times screw up on their headline is that they're going to have another chance to make it right, because that's only a leak of what the report is supposedly supposed to say. When the real report comes out, maybe that headline will be a lot more substantive, and it'll get the retweets that it garners. So we still have another shot at this. So if that gives you any sort of hope, you know, and for the people out there that, hey, you know, the report's still not out. So
and maybe it'll be a headline that doesn't come out at 7:30 on a Thursday evening as well.
Hopefully,
yeah, that's that so would be encouraging.
Good. Yeah, yeah. Look, you got him going. You got him going. You got him going. All right. Stop. We gotta stop out. Look at him. Okay, so real quick, the 1953 Tic-Tac document that Lou Elizondo had released through Skyfort on CNN the first time, and then never mentioned it the 4 other times he appeared that night. Real quick, Jazz, if you can you give us a summary of what this paper said and why it's important?
It was amazing. I had a great joke, but we don't have time for it. So, yeah, it was going back to documents that date back to World War II and to the Korean War, when pilots, were describing encounters with vehicles that they described as white lozenges, as propane tanks. You know, they were basically talking about Tic-Tacs before Tic-Tacs had been invented. So I think he was really hammering that home. It's like, no, this isn't technology that showed up last year, or in 2014, or in 2004, or even in the 1990s. This is stuff people were talking about during World War II. So I think that's what they were going for with that, and it seems to be documented. So it was very interesting.
It was, you know, what I found interesting is I had sort of been mentioning for the last few days, or asking, like I asked Ralph, you know, hey, why aren't you reporters looking at these older cases that are unclassified? Because it seems like the data and the systems that we were using 40, 50 years ago, they should be very easy to get through a FOIA, because those systems aren't used anymore. So, you know, and it's just interesting that Lou Elizondo brought, you know, this particular could we call this a case or an event before the world, and was like, look, this is a generational problem. This is not just something like you said, Jazz, that popped up a couple years ago. They've been dealing with this since the 50s. So 40s. Yeah, I thought that was the 40s. Yeah, so that's just cool stuff. Alec, any thoughts?
Not necessarily. I've been trying to track down the exact document that was shown on Tucker and CNN, and actually one person told me that they think they showed the wrong one, that Lou was referencing a different one than what they actually showed on screen.
Mike, you got that? You've got the document, right? We could pull it up real quick.
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick. Let me see if I can share my screen here.
But you're saying, Alec, that they might be
double checking.
Yeah, no, but you're saying, Alec, they might be two different documents, one different from what was shown on TV?
I heard from somebody involved with Skyfort that they may have shown the wrong document on Fox. Mike, could you do me a favor and send me a link to this?
Yeah, and I believe it was Jake Mann who
Flying
sourced
barrels
this to CNN. I believe he said that on Twitter.
Say that again, rather.
You can see it right. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think it was Jake Mann of Twitter, or not of Twitter, of Skyfort, who was working with CNN to hook them up with this document. At least that's what I read on Twitter.
Here it says they reference flying barrels. They also reference a flying lozenge, circular or possibly somewhat elliptical in form. No, it left no exhaust or condensation trail, you guys.
Yeah,
it's a Tic-Tac.
No, but I'm saying that sounds similar to what he highlighted on the program, though, on CNN. So yeah, definitely send this to Alec, because if he's been looking for it, he probably wants to take a look at this one.
I have about 4 different documents that all say vaguely the same thing, but none of them match what the show was shown on screen. So there's some discrepancy.
Got it.
I'm trying to rectify.
Well, have you seen this one yet?
Propane tank. So
No. Have you seen this one yet, or does this look unfamiliar to you?
I think this might have been the second page of the one they showed on Fox. I'm not entirely sure. They're all very, very similar, but there's key differences.
Okay, that's interesting. That's because that's the first time. That's the first time I've heard of that. That's something we should probably look into and find out for next show.
Posted something like 4 days ago that is very similar to this, talking about like green balls of fire, and it's a very, very similar document. The dates are even close. Instead of 1949, it's 1950. So I think there's a handful of these documents that are very similar that are kind of making their rounds. And I just want to pick out the exact ones that we're talking about, so we know for sure everyone's on the same page.
Right. No, that makes sense. That's a yeah. I think that needs clarification. Yep. All right. Well, so real quick, we're at the end of the show. I want to say thank you to everyone, but before I do, I want everybody to check out. We were going to talk about a debate between Jamarl Thomas, our friend of the show, and Mick West. It was an amazing, amazing debate. I wish it could have gone longer. Probably could have. It was very high on the intellectual level, and Jamarl really lays out a very compelling argument as to why Mick is just not being reasonable. So highly worth checking out. So go check that out. Michael, if you can, please, if you can outro everyone here, that would be great.
I would absolutely love to. So if you have not followed Alex Sears yet on Twitter, please make sure you do so. His information is below. He works at the Daily Caller. He focuses on UAPs, incredibly well-versed on the Hill. If you want somebody that can talk politics and UAP, that is your motherfucking dude. You got over here Rather Be Squiddin. If you are interested in some extraordinary science, if you are interested in speculation and extrapolation upon things that are being discovered every single day, make sure you go check out Rather Be Squidding on YouTube. If you are a fan of the curmudgeony, the extraordinary, the martini Jazz Shaw, please make sure you go follow him on Twitter. Luis, thank you so much as always for putting this on, for hosting us, for giving us an opportunity to be our weird and insane selves. If you haven't followed Luis on Twitter, make sure you go do that at Lou Angelis, and then make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you haven't followed me on Twitter at Singularity Mike, and if you haven't followed the Singularity Lab, what is your problem?
Do it. All right, gentlemen. So we'll see you Wednesday. Some of you will see, I think, Friday. But we always appreciate all of your knowledge and all of your perspectives. So thank you again.
Yeah, and if you want to know the difference between UFOs and drones, make sure we got Jeremy McGowan from the SCU on the Singularity Lab tomorrow. You need to know the difference. Click the link in my description of the Linktree. Follow Singularity Lab, click the bell. See you tomorrow.
All right. Gentlemen, we'll see you. Rather, thank you so much for being such a cool dude and hosting the show. Real quick, want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. Want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes you hear on this show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Want to remind you, Wednesday we've got our Skinwalker Ranch review with Cristina Gomez and UFO Jane, possibly Stevie Greenstreet to join us for a half hour, if not maybe sometime next week. And then on Friday, our really big interview with John Greenwald for the Black Vault. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a bunch of questions for him, so make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss a second of these conversations. And the most important thing to do, share it. Share the hell out of this channel. The more people know about it, the better it is, obviously, for you, for me, for this whole community. And if you can, check out the Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's a monthly way to financially support the show, to make sure that we can provide this content for you guys 5 days a week. Go check out the Patreon. It starts at $1, goes all the way up to $500,000 a month, just in case you got the guts. And if you can't join the Patreon, don't sweat it. There's no hidden footage. There's no hidden show. Nobody gets special access if they're on the Patreon or not. So the show is free to all. It comes out at the exact same time for everyone. So we appreciate the support. We appreciate the love. We cannot do this show without you guys. That is 100% fact. And I'm telling you right now, at this rate, I'm going to be out of that Uber real soon. So keep up with the support, keep up with the super chats, keep up with everything that helps me stay out of that Uber and in front of this computer so we could dissect this stuff all day and then bring it to you live and tell you what we think about it. So with all of that said, Michael, well, you're muted. You're muted. Michael, I can't hear you.
You got me now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Last thing, real quick. I just want to make sure everybody knows that if you donate to the Patreon, if you keep Luis out of an Uber, you're going to save his life. You're going to make sure that nobody else on the road dies.
These are all very good reasons. Very good reasons.
Well, I just want to say real quick, the Jack Heliquin is in the chat. He is the one who made that video.
Awesome.
And he did make it because he was high. So just so everybody knows.
I'd stand up, but yeah. Dude, thank you, Jack. That was an awesome video. Thank you guys, all of you, Mav, Matthew, Angel, Jack, my folks with the super chat, Christopher and Susie and KL, and all of you guys that donated. Alien Scientist was in the house. What's up, Jeremy? All of you guys, thank you so damn much. The show, again, is not possible without all of you. So,
do you remember Romper Room? Do you remember Romper Room? When you were a kid, it was a kid's show, and she's like, "Welcome, Amy. Welcome, Joey. Thanks for coming, Tyler." That's kind of
a little bit. All right, you guys. Until tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Singularity Lab. Don't miss it. We're gonna be there with Jeremy McGowan and my host Michael Mataluni and his wife Kristen Mataluni. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So see you tomorrow at 4, y'all. How do we do this? There we go.